This video is to support you with facilitating lessons 47, 48, and 49 of the 6th grade Excel curriculum. All 3 lessons are connected to the coordinate plane. In lesson 47, students are going to get some practice with graphing points on the coordinate plane. After they finish their fluency, when students jump into the first example, they're really getting oriented into what the coordinate plane is. And so it's going to be important that you help kids identify the x-axis, the y-axis, and the origin. Those are the most critical components of the coordinate plane, and that will set students up. So just make sure they can always see this x-axis. They know where the y-axis is. What's helpful is to let them know that the x-axis moves left to right, the y-axis moves up and down, and the origin is where those 2 axes intersect. So that's going to be important. Do not skip that part as you begin facilitating this lesson. As you jump into the next example, they're now being introduced into an ordered pair. What you want to make sure students get used to doing is labeling their ordered pair. So they are trying to identify which point is located at 6 and 2. When I see 6 and 2, I first want to label that my 6 is my X and my 2 is my Y. That means when I look for that 6, I'm going to be going left or right. And when I look for that 2, I'm going to be going up or down. So since my 6 is positive, I'm going to go over 6 to the right. And then I'm looking for my y coordinate now, which is a 2. So I'm going to go 2 units up. And I land on the point E. That will help students as they're drawing the same way you saw me draw. That's a great way to help students identify points. And they can use that same strategy as they get to the try it. So first they should label their X and their Y. You'll see that as a theme in these lessons. And as I'm looking for my X, I'm going to move to the right 3. And my Y is 4, so I'm going to go up 4 units. And that's how I land on the point D. So as students are identifying coordinates, if you see that they're getting them wrong, ask them which one is your X, which one is your Y. That'll help them be successful in this lesson. As you move into lesson 48 the next day, now students are going to not just identify points, they are going to graph the points. So in this first example, we are plotting the point 7 and 4. This is when it's really critical to first label your X and your Y. And then follow the steps in the example. The X coordinate is 7. I always start at my origin. I move over 7 points. And now my Y coordinate is 4, so I'm moving up 4 points, and that gives me R. Notice the example models how to mark up the graph. You should see students doing that as they are plotting points. So in this discussion question, when students need to tell you how to plot the point 5 and 6, you want to listen for that we are moving to the right 5 and we are moving up 6 units. So we are moving to the right 5 units and moving up 6 units. And what will help them remember that is labeling X and Y. So as students work through the problems, you want to see students tracing the graph with their pencil so that they can count the units and identify the accurate points. And then their work with the coordinate plane continues in lesson 49. Now in lesson 49, students have had some exposure with identifying points. They now know how to plot points. In this lesson, they're calculating the distance between 2 points. So in this first example, we want to calculate the difference between different types of bushes that are labeled on this graph. Their first step is to always know the ordered pair. So we want to calculate the distance between the holly bush and the azalea bush. So the first thing they need to do is identify the ordered pair for both, which is 6, 8, and 6, 3. Then they are going to count the units between those 2 points. So the 6's are the same. So their x coordinate is the same. We're going to count the distance between their y coordinates. And so when I start here at 3 and I'm going to count up to 8, I'm counting up 5 units. So the distance between the holly and azalea is 5 units. We're going to get back to this. As they move into the triad, they have 2 options to figure this question out. They can count the distance between the 2 points, or they can calculate the difference between the x coordinates because they are different. So if we're looking for the distance between the azalea bush and the rose bush, the first thing we want to do is identify the coordinates for those. The azalea bush, the coordinates are 2 and 3. For the rose bush, the coordinates are 6 and 3. So I can look at my graph and count the distance between 2 and 6, or I can simply subtract 6 from 2 and get 4. Both strategies will yield students the correct answer. So as students are working through the problems, it would be helpful to guide them through the problem-solving question to make sure they're really clear. And one, as they strategize and work through problems, they are first identifying the coordinate pairs. And then they are understanding if they are moving left to right or up and down to calculate the distance. So you will notice that as they get into the practice problems, I have labeled the coordinates for the points or the food that they are paying attention to. That's what you want to see on students' papers before they start calculating the distance. If you ensure that they're using those strategies, that will yield a lot of success in this lesson.